Wonderful day, wonderful day, wonderful day indeed. This right here is your neighborhood sensei Fouché. And as I begin my shows, as always, at first I am going to strongly suggest, because a lot of folks don't like being told what to do, true indeed. So, in continued forward conversation, again, in reference, I will repeat to emphatically implore for all of you beautiful, wonderful, loving, self-worthy individuals to stay woke. But in the process, never get all stressed out. You know what I'm saying? Take any necessary meditative practices and or procedures, including environmental change if and when necessary, to relax and always be prepared to take those notes. Yeah. First, let's give a couple of sponsorship shout outs. And the first sponsorship shout out that I am going to give is to our chief producer and composer of NNMP, Nasty Noise Music Productions, Mr. J.F. Winter. All of the instrumentals that you hear played here in the background of the Stay Woke program is composed and produced by, again, Mr. J.F. Winter of Nasty Noise Music Productions. N.M.P. is the acronym. I do have the links to the instrumental sites attached in the homepage of my channel. So if you want to get full access to the entire released library of NNMP, follow the elephant in the room and you will not get lost. Second shout out that I'm going to give is to Opus Clips. Anyone that does extended video and would like to have created clips of their extended videos done without themselves having to itemize into making a multitude of varietal choices, then let Opus Clips do the job for you. They have a free trial subscription, and then I have a paid subscription to itemize my clips more specific into how you see them, but you could cater to your own preference. And like I said, they have a 7-day trial to begin. And then if you choose and you're feeling it like I was, then, pay for the subscription. I mean, I recommend it, but, everything is by your choice. So, moving forward, we have been covering this wonderful novel by Lindsay C. Gibson, which is Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And anyone that has been following me in this common conversation to this novel, I have exchanged the word parents for people, because parents are just a title of person. And your parents, if you are following this by choice, have a high level of immature behavior as a person, and mostly as your parents, since you have closest relation and ties to them. You know what I'm saying? They're an embarrassment. They're not worth your attention, or they are extremely frustrating, not only to communicate with, but deal with. And you don't know how to deal with them, or you feel obligated that you have to deal with them. And you really don't. But information is key. So if you know what you're dealing with, then you should know what you should do if you have very secure foundational boundaries of high moral standing. How to heal from distant, rejecting, or self-involved parents. Was your parent difficult, immature, or emotionally unavailable? If you grew up with an emotionally immature, unavailable, or selfish parent, you may have lingering feelings of anger, loneliness, betrayal, or in my case, abandonment, as well as betrayal and anger. And that's speaking for myself in honest tongue. You may recall your childhood as a time when your emotional needs were not met, when your feelings were dismissed, or when you took on adult levels of responsibility in an effort to compensate for your parents' behavior. These wounds can be healed, and you can move forward in your life. You don't have to follow in the same addictive patterns of behavior of your immature parents. You have a choice to change, or you will have a continued cycle of chaos in the following generation that you birthed or seeded. And if you don't believe me, then continue to neglect your situation and find out. You know what I'm saying? And tell me I'm wrong on the back end. You know, that guy, Sensei Fouché, that was kicking all that stuff back then, what he was talking about in regards to the cycle of immature behavior running into following generations, he was completely wrong. I neglected my kids. I was an alcoholic. I was a drug addict. And everything turned out just beautiful. I don't know what that guy was talking about. I was so full of myself and so into my own life that I chose to follow the path of finding my own immature connected love with some other incomplete person, while I continue to neglect and show no connection to my own child. I can't even show the value of love within my own home, but I'm expecting to give it outside of me and expect it to be given to me in my greatest need from someone else, because I really don't love myself or appreciate myself. I don't value my kids, and I really need for something else to make me feel good. Immature people. And if that sounded like your parent, they were immature, and if you are following in that same cycle of pattern, that makes you immature. And if you have chaos going on within your own confines of your home and your living situation, then that is your fault as well for not having a proper moral foundation in order for there to be a mature conditioning. So we are in chapter 3. How it feels to have a relationship with an emotionally immature parent. And I am going to begin into our reading expedition. And the reason why I used expedition is because we are exploring through this information, and we are also exploring through our feelings. Their self-esteem rides on your compliance. People who are emotionally immature only feel good about themselves when they could get other people to give them what they want and to act like they think they should. That's very self-absorbed, very selfish, and very dictatorial. Given this shaky self-worth, it's hard for emotionally immature people to tolerate their children's emotions. An upset or fussy child can stir up their anxieties about their own fundamental goodness. If they can't immediately calm their child, they may feel like a failure and then blame the child for upsetting them, rather than understanding what is and being able to empathetically relate to the situation and the conditioning. That is where you wind up going into extreme anxious behavior. And you think that it's the child, and it's really you dealing with the situation. Because in the most mature understanding, you will handle the issue with tact, class, responsibility, and respectability, and not really have your intelligence challenged. And you will more than likely be able to diffuse and minimize the situation by using educated tactics of solution into solving the woes of the child's ailment or conditioned thinking at the moment. For emotionally immature people, all interactions boil down to the question of whether they're good people or bad ones, which explains their extreme defensiveness if you try to talk to them about something they did. If you try to tell this, give the strongest of suggestion to someone that is dealing with a frustrating situation within their home involving their children, they will be extremely defensive. They will attack you because they feel like you attacked them. And there will be a total breakdown of the exchange of speaking and listening. Like that, there will be static created in between the process of speaking and listening. Like they shut down. So you may as well just chalk that up to someone that is very dismissive and, again, extremely immature. They would rather shut down communication than hear something that could make them feel like bad people. And it's not that you're trying to tell them that they are bad. The situation is bad. And that's a fact. You know what I'm saying? And you have to acknowledge the fact that it is bad. And you know that it's bad. And you have to be held accountable into why it's bad. Because the other person didn't create it. They're just dealing with it. And they know, in looking from an outside viewpoint, as opposed to being so defensive within, they're probably giving you very sound information. You know what I'm saying? And it's really not personal. It's the fact that there is so much displeasure that is in current being or existence that, they feel it's their duty to respectfully notify you of what they see in hopes to try to help you. You know what I'm saying? But you so externalizing into how you receive information that you become extremely childlike and pretty much go into throwing a fit. Same thing as, a little pre-K or kindergarten or early elementary school individual going into, this fit of rage. If there's anything emotionally immature people are keen on is relationships. In relationships, it's role compliance. If there's anything emotionally immature people are keen on in relationships, it's role compliance. Roles simplify life and make decisions clear cut. As parents, emotionally immature people need their children to play a proper role that includes respecting and obeying them. They often use platitudes to support, and platitudes is just levels, to support the authority of their role as a parent because, like roles, platitudes oversimplify complex situations and make them easier to deal with. Role entitlement is an attitude of demanding certain treatment because of your social role. Let's go into example because we're talking about parents. So just because you are a parent, you feel that you should be respected regardless of how you treat your children. If you treat your children extremely crappy, then you expect for them to highly honor you. But you are frustrated in the fact that they don't honor you. And that is because they have not learned honor because you deal with things in a very immature way. When parents feel entitled to do what they want simply because they're in the role of parent, right? I was just saying that. When I ad-lib right after reading a sentence, like I didn't even read the next sentence yet. Like I just went into flow, and then going into flow, it had me speak ahead into what they're going to reference in the following sentences. So again, when parents feel entitled to do what they want simply because they're in the role of parent, this is a form of role entitlement. They act as though being a parent exempts them from respecting boundaries or being considerate. And I'm proud of myself because that means, and that's why I, kind of go off script for a minute, because I'm like, man, if you was already speaking in ad-lib in what was being referenced in following sentences, then that means that you really absorbed all of this information at an extremely high level of ingratiation. And I use a lot of specific big words because I am proud of having an extended vocabulary. And if I miss a couple of words slightly, my apologies. I am not perfect. But when I listen back, I remember to not make that same mistake twice if it is within my control of observance. Role coercion occurs when people insist that someone live out a role because they want them to. As parents, they try to force their children into acting a certain way by not speaking to them, threatening to reject them, or getting other family members to gang up against them. Role coercion often involves a heavy dose of shame and guilt, such as telling a child that he or she is a bad person for wanting something the parent disapproves of. And even though the choice may be wrong or the thought may be wrong, the action in accordance to their level of process thinking falls right in line, or it should, with their level of not only physical age or cycle of age, but also within the, I was going to say, the psychological mind state of someone that old. The physical development of your brain and psychologically not reaching the full growth or the highest level of base understanding. You know what I'm saying? So, simply put, a child is going to go through certain situations and experiences that are generic dumb, as I would call it, but it is within the process of curiosity, of developing curiosity, because they see these things or people doing things around them, including yourself, and the curiosity starts to grow. And if they see that something is happening or someone is involved in something and they somehow have a connection to that, no matter how misguided they became connected to it, you know, it's a society thing that is pretty much out of your control to a certain degree, but within your control in being extremely assertive and mature into educating them. Insistence on complying with roles to this degree is a profound invalidation of a child's most personal and essential choices in life. Yet, emotionally immature parents have no qualms about doing it because they aren't comfortable with complexity and prefer life simplified. In their view, not fulfilling a supposed role means something is wrong with a person. The person needs to change. And again, knowing that you should be at a higher level of evolved processing, you should be able to more calmly and agreeably express your position and your education without having a high level of frustration and angry exchange and feelings moving forward. And it shouldn't be an extended feeling of that resistant anger. Like, that should be short-lived, being that you trust and know that the person that is in charge of guiding you or guarding you in guardianship or parenting you has your best interest, and you will follow through in honoring them, unless you don't respect or honor them as individuals, because they, speaking of the parents as people, they recognize as immature and not dependable. Although emotional intimacy and enmeshment, and let's look up that word enmeshment before we go forward. Enmeshment. Enmeshment is when family members are emotionally dependent and intertwined without separation. Hold on to that one. So, although emotional intimacy and enmeshment can look superficially similar, these two styles of interaction are very different. Emotional intimacy and enmeshment are two totally different things. In emotional intimacy, two individuals with fully articulated selves enjoy getting to know each other at a deep level, building emotional trust through mutual acceptance. In the process of getting to know each other, they discover and even cherish differences between them. That is mature agreement in, at times, disagreeing. Emotional intimacy is invigorating and energizes people toward personal growth as they enjoy the interest and support of another person. And that is an extreme level of maturity. And not a lot of people have that. In enmeshment, on the other hand, two emotionally immature people seek their identity and self-completion through an intense dependent relationship. Through this enmeshed relationship, they create a sense of certainty, predictability, and security that relies on the reassuring familiarity of each person playing a comfortable role for the other. It's basically just masquerading, playing a fictional character. If one person tries to step out of the implicit bounds of the relationship, the other often experiences great anxiety that's only eased by a return to the prescribed role. So if you are in a mature dealing of a disagreement in a relationship and the other person goes into a rant of I was thinking of a child that is being extremely rude or disruptive, and I can't think of the specific word right now, but you would have to minimize your maturity and level down in order for them to settle back in to being comfortable in your company. You know what I'm saying? And it's basically a kid throwing a tantrum. That's what I was looking for, a temper tantrum. Enmeshment sometimes manifests as playing favorites. It can be hard to watch a parent give attention to a preferred sibling, making you wonder why your parent never showed that kind of interest in you. But obvious favoritism isn't a sign of a close relationship, it's a sign of enmeshment. It's likely that the preferred sibling has a psychological maturity level similar to the parents. Low levels of emotional maturity pull people into emotional enmeshment, especially if they are a parent and a child. Remember, emotionally immature parents relate on the basis of roles, not individuality. Like they don't even know who they are or are comfortable in being within their own identification in their skin. So they have to wind up being one of these sub-characters, which I labeled in the last book conversation of the conscious con, or living within the 7 deadly sins. And I was covering that in The Power of Now. And that's why I decided to cover that book primarily as the first conversation of choice. If you had an independent, self-reliant personality, your parent wouldn't have seen you as a needy child for whom he or she could play the role of rescue and parent. You know what I'm saying? They need somebody weaker than them in order to feel important. If you're not as weak as them, then they don't feel secure and needed and out of place. And that's like role reversal, because they should be secure and you should be the more insecure, even in your secure state of your level of growth or age. Instead, you may have been pegged as the child without needs, the little grown up. It wasn't some sort of insufficiency in you that made your parent pay more attention to your sibling. Rather, it's likely that you weren't dependent enough to trigger your parents' enmeshment instincts. That's some serious stuff. Interestingly, self-sufficient children who don't spur their parents to become enmeshed are often left alone to create a more independent and self-determined life. Therefore, they can achieve a level of self-development exceeding that of their parents. In this way, not getting attention can actually pay off in the long run. But in the meantime, high-functioning children still have the pain of feeling left out as their parent pours energy into emotional enmeshment with one or more siblings. You know, and simply put, if you are more mature than the rest of not only your siblings, but your parents or parent in this household, because you're getting more positive and constructive influences in other areas outside of the home in your close connection, then bravo for you. You know what I'm saying? It's not your fault of why your parent is neglectful. You know what I'm saying? And it really doesn't do you any honor or value to try to dumb yourself down and commit to something beneath your level and of low frequency and IQ. You know what I'm saying? You're going to wind up harming yourself and going into cycles of abusive behavior, self-abuse, more or most likely. Enmeshment can take the form of either dependency or idealization. In dependent enmeshment, the child is maladjusted. Let's look that up. I know what it means, but let's look that up for the people that don't. Maladjusted. Just maladjusted. A failing or unable to cope with the demands of a normal social environment. Enmeshment can take the form of either dependency or idealization. In dependent enmeshment, the child is maladjusted and the parent plays the role of either rescuer or victim. In idealized enmeshment, the parent indulges a favorite child as though the child is more important and deserving than the other kids. However, this traps the idealized favorite child in an ironclad role, so that child isn't experiencing any true emotional intimacy either. You know what I'm saying? You have an adult lowering themselves to their child's age level and acting within that age level and expecting for that to be some form of comfortable expression of love and informative education in their aspiration of evolution. Emotionally immature parents can act out their needs for enmeshment even with people who aren't close family members. If there's an enmeshment void, they'll go outside the immediate family to fill it. You know what I'm saying? If they're not getting babied or enmeshed within their home, they're going to find someone else to cater to their low IQ or low level needs. They might also become enmeshed with a group, such as a church or some other organization. And this isn't to say that churches are bad, but this person is going to link up with other confused people within any confines of communion and engage in low IQ and low level behavior and be comfortable within that relationship and continue to neglect you. Let me see how much far we have. We only have 3 more pages to go. Although this is an extremely subtle point and easily overlooked, emotionally immature people often have a fragmented orientation to time, especially when they get emotional. We might assume that all adults experience time in the same way, using a kind of linear continuum that stretches seamlessly from the distant past into the foreseeable future. Not so with emotionally immature people. When they get emotionally aroused, moments exist in a kind of eternal now, which means all the time they're going to be in distress or, feeling unworthy. This is one reason why the lives of emotionally immature people are often beset with problems. They don't see them coming. Ruled by desires of the moment, their experiences in time are frequently disconnected. You know what I'm saying? And if we was to talk into that time, being trapped in time, it's basically saying because of a past instance, they can't move on to a present future. You know what I'm saying? Because they're hoping that a future is based on what happened in the past and they're not able to deal with the now. Like they're hoping that the problem or the situation will disappear, and it won't. So in not dealing with what is in the moment, that's how they get will be called trapped in time, or in this relation of explanation, though they don't see problems coming. Ruled by desires of the moment, their experiences in time are frequently disconnected. When acting on their impulses, they don't use the past for guidance, and they don't anticipate the future. Like they don't recognize the past as a problem and trying to solve that problem in the moment in order to discontinue that from happening in the future. They just kind of go into, again, what I would call childlike tantrum, and just kind of close their eyes and wish it away instead of dealing with it, not only in what they did wrong and or how they could have changed into something happening different within how they interact with another person or a specific type of person if a future moment was to come up. Like they wouldn't go through that again. But the reason why they keep going into these pattern cycles is because of this childlike, immature tantrum mode or state of existence that they connect to. This disturbance in time continuity, or this disturbance in time continuity, explains their inconsistencies and the unreflective way they handle relationship issues. Emotionally immature people may seem to be emotional manipulators, but actually they're just very opportunistic, pardon me. Opportunistic tacticians, pressing for whatever feels best at the time. They have no investment in being consistent. So they say whatever gives them an edge in the moment. They may be capable of strategic thinking in their work or in other pursuits, but when it comes to emotional situations, they go for the immediate advantage. Lying is a perfect example of a momentary win that feels good but is destructive to a relationship in the long run. When stressed or emotionally aroused, immature people don't experience themselves as being embedded in the ongoing flow of time. They don't see themselves as part of the situation within the time. They experience moments in time as separate, non-linear blips, like little lights randomly going on and off with few linkages in time between one interaction and another. Like this is just childlike behavior, going into that tantrum syndrome, as I called it. They act inconsistently as their consciousness hops from one experience to another. This is one reason why they're often indignant when you remind them of their past behavior. And let's look up indignant right quick, because we use a lot of big words on the show, and we're going to itemize some of these. Indignation, anger or annoyance provoked by what is perceived as unfair treatment. Again, that's child temper tantrum syndrome. For them, the past is gone and has nothing to do with the present. So again, this is one reason why they're often indignant when you remind them of their past behavior. For them, the past is gone and has nothing to do with the present. Likewise, if you express caution about something in the future, they're likely to brush you off since the future isn't here yet. More emotionally mature people, on the other hand, experience time as a series of connected, self-aware moments. If they regret something they did, it continues to travel through time with them, attached to them by an emotion like shame or guilt. If they think about doing something risky in the future, they feel linked to what might happen and may choose to do something different. The moments of their lives feel connected, each affecting the others, and all affecting their relationships with other people. Self-reflection is the ability to analyze your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors over time. People who focus mostly on the present moment don't have enough of a time perspective to engage in self-reflection. Instead, with each new moment, they leave their past behind, freeing them from any sense of responsibility for their actions. Therefore, when someone feels hurt by something they did in the past, they tend to accuse the person of dwelling on the past for no good reason. They don't understand why others can't just forgive, forget, and move on. Because of their limited sense of the continuity of time, they don't understand that it takes time to heal from a betrayal. You can see how hard accountability would be for these people. It's a flimsy concept for those who don't feel a temporal connection between their actions and future consequences. As a result, their natural style is to promise something, not to do it, apologize perfunctorily, which means they don't. All right, so let's go back. As a result, their natural style is to promise something, not to do it. apologize perfunctorily. Now let's look that up because I know I said it, so let's look it up. Perfunctorily. Perfunctorily. It refers to actions that are done routinely or out of habit rather than with enthusiasm. Again, is an adverb that describes doing something quickly and without care or interest. It refers to actions that are done routinely or out of habit rather than with enthusiasm. You know what I'm saying? Trying to find where we left off. There we go. As a result, their natural style is to promise something, not to do it, apologize perfunctorily, and then resent people if they keep bringing it up. You may wonder why a person would develop such an unreliable sense of time, being blind to their own inconsistencies and unable to observe their own behavior. It has to do with their lack of self-development and poor personality integration, along with their tendency toward extreme concrete literal thinking, because they don't have an ongoing conscious self as an organizing center of their personality. Emotions or stress can put them in a childlike mentality in which moments in time float separately. They don't like to deal with problems. They just rather dismiss it and hope for it to never come up again. But it will, because they have no accountability into what they did or their actions. So in summary, emotionally immature people have a poor sense of personal history and resist being accountable for their past actions or future consequences, lacking a firm sense of self. They think family closeness means enmeshment with people existing to mirror each other. Real communication is nearly impossible because their poor empathy and rigid emphasis on roles. They neglect relationship repair and reciprocity and shrink the emotional work necessary to be sensitive to other people. Instead, they focus on whether others seem to make them look good or bad. Defending against anxiety trumps relating authentically to other people, including their children. And on that note, we are going to stop our reading. And in our next reading, we are going to go into chapter 4, which is titled 4 Types of Emotionally Immature Parents. 4 different types of emotionally immature people. We are going to itemize the 4 different character types of emotionally immature people. And until that time, I am going to ask for any of you watchers or listeners to really itemize into who you are and how you not only deal with information and situations, but how you deal with people. How do you deal with challenges? Challenges are frustrating, but do you deal with them with class and tact, or do you deal with them in the aspect of throwing a tantrum? You know what I'm saying? Because that is the difference between immature and mature behavior. So call yourself for what you truly are if you really are in hopes of fixing the problem or becoming better or not having a problem. You know what I'm saying? You have to be honest in the accountability in order for there to be succession in a higher possibility, in a probability of high IQ, and very self-valuing existence. So, until our next episode and program, I am going to say and end on this note by letting you know that this right here is your neighborhood Sensei Fouché. And I first strongly suggest, because a lot of folks don't like being told what to do, true indeed, because you claim grown, but you are probably immature and need to be mature in knowing that there has to be more. So in forwardness, I, again, this time emphatically implore for all of you beautiful, loving, valuable, wonderful, self-worthy individuals to stay woke. But in the process, never get all stressed out. You know what I'm saying? Take all and any necessary meditative practices and procedures, including environmental change if necessary, in order to relax. And always, always, always be prepared to take those notes. Be smooth. Unity in one.